Welcome to the German Climate Pavilion at COP29 in Baku. Germany. Climate solutions, fast and fair.
Hello, good evening, dear fellow fighters for climate justice. Thank you so much for being here, for coming to our event, Bridges to Belém, how Brazil and Germany look ahead to COP30. I am Alisa Badum, the head of the subcommittee on international energy and climate policy in German parliament. It's just our second event at COP because the whole committee didn't exist before this government. We want to be here to support our government to bring together climate policy and foreign policy. And that's why parliamentarians also work on this issue. Before I start to introduce our dear panelists, let me start with a warm thank you for my policy advisor, Jimmy Dögel, and all the policy advisors, all the staff, all the people who are facilitating the events we can attend at COP. Please give a round of applause. Applause to all the organizers. So we are, of course, still here in Baku working for a solution this COP. So it's still, the negotiators still doing everything. But we also want to look ahead and to prepare for the next COP, COP30 in Brazil, which is coming up next year and is taking place in a democratic state. So we're all very thankful for that. And I'm very happy that we will have an interesting discussion here and we'll hear the German side, but also the Brazilian side. And I will come with me on the panel here, Raoni Rajão, head of the Department for Deforestation and Fire Control Policies in Brazil. Please come to my side. Thank you so much for being here. I also welcome Norbert Gorissen, Deputy Special Envoy for Climate Action at the German Foreign Office. Thank you, Norbert, for taking the time. And Pollyana from the Brazilian NGO Climate Reality Project Brazil. Thank you also for your time. I also want to welcome my colleague from German Parliament, Andreas Mehltreter from the Social Democratic Party, and all the other colleagues which are still talking at the entrance. But we have more parliamentarians here. Maybe we will hear them later on. So we will soon open up for the audience, for your questions. But let me begin with some questions in the beginning. So, Raoni, we have your view, your perspective here, so very good for us to hear. And we know that Brazil looks at sustainability in some aspects differently than does Europe. So my question would be, what can the global North, if we may call us themselves so, learn from the Brazilian approach? What do you think?
So good evening, everybody. It's indeed a pleasure to be here. First of all, I think it's important to highlight that every country has its own approaches and has developed over time to deal with those. And of course, it has to be effective to deal with the causes of greenhouse gas emissions linked to that specific country, which is the contribution we can make to the rest of the world. We know that more than 80% of greenhouse gas emissions has to do with burning of fossil fuels. So if we don't change the basis of our energy metrics, we're not going to tackle the problems that we need to deal with in the end. However, we have on the other hand, the other 20%, which are linked to deforestation, which in addition to contribute to climate change, it also brings the loss of our biodiversity and also the balance of our hydrological services. And this is the main source of greenhouse gases specifically for Brazil. So that's why in the case of Brazil, while we focus also on keeping our energy matrix highly sustainable and renewable, since most of it's already in that situation, we also have to emphasize and work very hard to drop deforestation, which is indeed very challenging, because while you can decarbonize via carbon taxes and also through intervention in industry, tackling illegal deforestation, it's indeed something which has to do with many more actors, and also has to do a lot with an issue of governance. And so Brazil has made some important strides in the last couple of years, and indeed we're very happy to come to the COP already with a reduction of 45.7% of deforestation in the Amazon in only 2 years. So we're definitely doing our homework, but more has to be done if we are to reach zero deforestation by 2030.
Okay, thank you so much. Do you think the whole topic is supported, is discussed enough at COP, the topic of deforestation?
Well, there are some historical differences in the perspectives between Brazil and Europe as a whole. I wouldn't localize specifically with Germany, and where we believe more strongly in nature-based solutions. We understand that that could be definitely a source of contribution for global mitigation, while Europe tends to be more skeptical in relation to that. Also, the same thing in relation to biofuels. Okay. Brazil has developed a technology very well established. We believe that can be a technology for other countries. And Europe stands with other technological solutions for energy transition. But I think we can reach definitely a common understanding and see how can we best address those issues according to the country's specific conditions.
Okay, thank you so much for that first impression, perspective from your side. Norbert. Obviously, the negotiations, the discussions between Germany and Brazil are, there's a lot going on since the new government is in office. But what would you think, in which aspects the Brazilian-German relations could be strengthened in the future?
Thank you for the invitation, and also thanks, Raoni, for your remarks. As you said, Lisa, we have really ramped up the collaboration between Germany and Brazil a lot. So last year, a year ago, actually it was during COP28, we had an event in Berlin where more or less the full government of Brazil came to Berlin, including President Lula, and we signed a new strategic partnership between Germany and Brazil. And what I found very important in that respect is that it was framed around also the ecological and just transition. So it was not just a niche theme, it was a core of this partnership. And since we have started to implement it, and we have already some progress. Of course, you can now ask, what else can we do? We are working on a number of things where we could go on with that. I would like to mention two areas. One is the Tropical Fund Forever, which is being developed by what's suggested by Brazil, and what is discussed now with a number of potential supporters, including Germany. And I cannot make a firm statement on that right now, but what I can say is we are very interested in that. We are looking how we can participate in it. Currently, we are in a difficult situation with respect to making any funding commitments because, as you know, we will have elections very soon, and so therefore we have no budget for 2025. So it may take some time, but we can continue to work on it. And everybody who is involved in that, in particular my colleagues from the Ministry of Development Cooperation, are very interested to participate. And it would be great if we could be able to join that fund together with other partners next year in Belém, which I understand would be one of the points which Brazil would like to launch at COP30. And the second area is, which we also agreed upon, is to establish what we call track 1.5 dialogue. So it's a dialogue between government and non-governmental and civil society organizations, research institutes, to underpin the political dialogue also by a more technical and scientific dialogue. And we have, in principle, agreed to do that, but unfortunately, we're still not that it's working. So I hope that we very soon will be able to start this process and then have serious discussions on expert level, for in particular on issues like what you have mentioned, like standards for sustainable biofuels, because we have not completely the same opinion on that aspect. But it would be worthwhile really to have the expert sitting together, Brazilians and Germans, and to really dive deep into the details of it. I'm sure that many of the rationale we think why it is sometimes problematic may have changed meanwhile in Brazil, but we may not know where you are at the moment, etc. Because a core point on that is that biofuels or the expansion of biofuels for sure should not lead to extended accelerated deforestation. So that was one of the main problems we had. So let's hope that both of these things could become elements of the further advancements of the Brazilian and German collaboration. And I'm quite convinced, whatever the outcome of the elections would be, that there would be an interest also in the new government to continue with that collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So to proposes to work together on the common fund Brazil wants to establish, and also on the 1.5 degrees pathway action network. So maybe we can continue later on with that. But first, Pollyana, let me ask you, which projects do you see? Would you agree, Norbert, that the main project he just announced? Or what would you think as part of an NGO? What is the most important common project to focus on till COP30? What should we have ready till next year?
Well, first, thank you for the invitation. As you know, I'm from the Amazon region, and for me, it's really important to have someone from the region to be talking about it. I think that Brazil is really focusing on this COP to be different from the other ones. Like, it's supposed to be a huge deal for the country itself, and but I do not think that we are going forward with what COP means in Brazil. So what I mean is that while we are focusing on how we can gain out of it, how can we develop as as a city in Belém, how we can gain things from the COP, but not as well what COP means. So many things in Brazil, many people in Brazil don't really know what it means to have, for instance, mitigation or adaptation or just transition. So I think we should, make it accessible for people in Brazil and for people from the Amazon to know why they are so into this matter and why they are so devastated by everything that is happening in the Amazon, and everything is related. But I'm not really sure if Brazil is really on the same page with the society in Brazil. So I think that we should work with instead of thinking how COP can be good for Brazil, but actually think how COP can be good for the people in Brazil in Africa, and the event happens too. So I think it's really important to have this connection with the team, to have the connection with how society can manage. And civil society in Brazil is a huge deal now, and youth from the Amazon are also really present at COPs. This one is like a COP that I think that had a lot of people from the Amazon, especially from Belém. And since that, I could see that it's really different from a point of view that we can now see how society can be implemented on it. So I think that it's the most basic thing that we should do. But right now, I don't think Brazil is actually going for it, and I think we should focus more on that.
Okay, thank you so much. For sure, civil society should play a big role in this next COP. Here in Azerbaijan, it's, not really the most NGO-friendly environment. We can all agree to that. So you want to see a stronger role of civil society at next COP. And obviously, all of the topics that have been talked about in the last years can actually be discussed with indigenous people from the Amazon, where they are living, kind of, and it's not as abstract as a lot of other COPs are. So we're looking forward to that. So I also would like to welcome Madeleine Wörner from MISEREOR. She had a long way to go because she didn't go by plane. Sorry that I'm shouting, but there's a lot of noise around, so I hope you don't mind. She didn't come by plane, but I think with bike or train or anything, so it took her 2 or 3 weeks to come here, so that's why she's a bit late, I think. Madeleine, so cool that you're also here. What do you think about COP30? So what's the main goal of MISEREOR there? And maybe to bring in a new topic, the whole tax the rich instrument was discussed a lot, was brought in by Brazil. Also the whole principle polluters pays. So how can we get the big corporations especially to pay their fair share? Is kind of introduces a new topic to the international scene. What do you think about this topic, and what other things should be tackled at COP30? Your opinion?
Thank you, Lisa. That's a really good question, and I'm sorry for joining late. I hope I can still contribute to my best. So MISEREOR is working in the Amazon for quite some time. We have more than 100 projects, and I think around 28 million euros of our budget is going to projects in the Amazon. So they're very at our heart, and it's an important area. And I also see some partners here, and if I feel that there is some question that would be better to direct there, I will do so. We are at the climate conferences since 2007, so quite a long time. And when we now look at COP30 and what it means for the climate negotiations, but also for partners, we think that it will be an important space where, of course, negotiations are happening, but it is also a space where the Brazilian civil society can wake up again, revive itself again. I just heard that there are many, many networks that are already preparing themselves to enrich the conference and also to push countries, governments for ambition. We know that this COP we have to take ambitious and strong decisions for finance so that we can unlock NDCs next year. And this is also an important aspect that should be put into attention. And when I now come to the second part of the question, of course, Belém is also a special place in itself. We know that it is based at the Amazon. We know that day by day there are many ships going and they are transporting soy for Europe. We know that there are many agro companies that do huge profits. We know that there are many. The governor of Para is actually selling the land of the indigenous people for carbon credits. So all of this is also putting a more critical view to COP30. And in regard of making big polluters pay, I think, we also should have the agro businesses on our view. And when we now look at Germany, and we have Bayer, who is providing many pesticides that are also used. Most of them are prohibited in Germany, but they are used in Brazil. So there is a huge injustice against humanity going on.
Okay, thank you so much. And I would also like to welcome Lukas Hammer, member of the Austrian Parliament from the Greens. Thank you for joining in. And I welcome my colleague Micha Bloß from the European Parliament, which had a big discussion here, but now is leaving, unfortunately. Great that you were here, Michael. So, Raoni, I want to come back to you. We heard a lot of expectations for next COP. Norbert made some proposals where Germany could work together with Brazil. Would this also be the focus points for you? And Madeleine said that she wanted the agribusiness to contribute, polluters pay, tax the rich. What's your point on that? And also Pollyana said that civil society should be really present next COP. So I bring all this back to you. What's your perspective?
Oh, I believe that civil society plays a very important role in all of this. We wouldn't be talking about the conservation of the Amazon as strongly as we are if it wasn't the work done in the last few decades on this topic. And I'm coming from academia. I'm a professor myself. I've been working also with not only government but civil society for quite a long time. So I know how the different sides work. And so then definitely it's very important. It's very important to ensure proper participation in this process. And when it comes to priorities and the relation between Brazil and Germany, well, Brazil and Germany has a very long cooperation, especially on nature and nature conservation. You have the ARPA program for the establishment and consolidation of conservation areas, which is a program that has been going on since the 90s, really, and it has always been one of our closest partners. Germany has also, together with Germany and now the UK and now also the United States and the countries, been a big contributor to the Amazon Fund, which has been a very important tool to strengthen government, but also civil society, and which roughly get half of the resources of the fund, and indigenous communities, which get actually a much bigger share than, for instance, the emission reductions. And also we have, and now, for instance, coming out from this specific visit from President Lula, we have different projects going on. The IKI initiative, which, by the way, I'm the focal point, which now implementing actions not only for the Amazon but also for the other biomes. But we need to diversify and look how do we expand and how we mobilize climate finance, because one of the key challenges here is how we live up at the ups and downs of the budget from different countries, from the different partners. And one of the ways of doing that is to mobilizing REDD+ resources, which is very important, should make a difference between how projects and how the private sector does that and how the governments do that, including the state governments. When you do a project, you are actually measuring a specific area, and then you're taking the carbon from that specific area. When you have a jurisdictional or a government approach, like the Amazon Fund, what you do, you incentivize reductions at the whole region, and which are mostly done, and the results are only generated when you have actual deforestation reductions, and that, as we know, come mostly from fighting legal deforestation in private areas, because indigenous areas do not have a lot of deforestation, so they do not generate lots of REDD+ results from that perspective of governmental approaches. And then we have this important role of distributing that benefit so that we don't actually give the money for those that have deforested, but we give the money for those that deserve the most. So that's why it's very important to have a benefit sharing approach which actually distribute that. However, REDD+ is going to die because we're going to reach zero deforestation. And after we are at zero, there are no more reduction to be paid for. That's why it's very important to think about new approaches that provide a sustained source of finance and pay for the preserved hectare. And that's the basic idea behind the Tropical Forest Forever Fund, which is basically an endowment fund which reinvest the money, get resources from that, and then provide a steady flow of resources for different populations, especially thinking about the indigenous and traditional populations in Brazil and other countries, because it's being proposed by Brazil. Brazil is using its weight as the leader and the host country for the G20, for the COP30, but it's definitely an idea that should be for the whole world. And having the partnership of countries such as Germany, and it was going to be really crucial for us to make it take off.
Okay, so this is the main project for you for COP30, Tropical Forever Fund, Tropical Forest Forever Fund. And so if this would be established in a good manner, this would be a sign for success for COP30 for you, or is it?
Well,
am I right?
There are different signs of success. Of course, we have the negotiations, and many topics which are being negotiated here probably going to be, continue being negotiated at the COP in Belém. So we have that track, but also we would like to see more ambitious NDCs. Brazil, UK, and the United Arab Emirates have proposed their NDCs already. Now we are waiting for the other countries to do that, and we would like those countries to do increasingly ambitious NDC, and so that's also that part. And of course, you have the establishment and the raising up and of more resources for forest conservation. I think those are the main topics here that we're looking for.
Okay, sounds like it's a big consensus here on the podium, but I still want to, I'm not sure if we have a consensus on everything. So, because you didn't mention the whole agribusiness tax the rich thing. So, Pollyana, I wanted to ask you, obviously we know, okay.
Yeah, no, just to,
yeah.
Sorry, I jumped on that. It wasn't because of a political sensibility, okay. But at G20, one of the main diplomatic efforts of Brazil was actually to tax the super rich. And of course, we know we have a very close neighbor, which wasn't really supporting that, but nevertheless, we managed to put a word out there, because it is really crucial that we not only seek decarbonization, forest transition, forest conservation, but also climate justice.
But still, it's still a big division within the Brazilian society, right? Because I think we all agree the very progressive government is in office, but still Brazilian parliament is, there's a majority of conservative parliamentarians there, and also we have an elite of, let's say in a broader way, agribusiness in Brazil, which is still having a lot of power. So, Pollyana, what do you think? How is the government dealing with this division and, these problems within the Brazilian society and the unfair distributions of power? And could the government do more? Or how can you support the fight for more equality, for more fairness in Brazil?
Well, of course, the government could do more. I mean, it's almost like we know that it's a huge thing in Brazil, the agribusiness, and it's not quite simple to just, be against them. So we understand that we have to move forward to it, but the government itself can do more, and it should do more, because this agribusiness is literally a huge problem that takes a lot of space into deforestation, into the drought that is happening in the Amazon, into other issues that do not exactly related to climate justice. So if we want to get to a really progressive country, we actually should be discussing how we can implement ways that the agribusiness is not anymore what is ruling Brazil. And that's why I mentioned the society before, because it's really important that they could listen to us. Economy in Brazil is not all about agro also. For instance, in Brazil, we have a lot of social bioeconomy that is really important. And the answer is already in the territory. So if you think about the many ways that Brazil can actually develop in a positive way, the agribusiness is not really interesting for us. So I think that the government should do more. It's moving a little bit, not the way we would enjoy so much, but it's better than before. So we definitely think that the agribusiness is something really powerful that we should, have discussions and to move forward to pass that, to not make that, the whole concept of Brazil, because it shouldn't be that way,
Thank you. We don't have any Brazilian parliamentarians here, but I think that you have the view that they also could maybe fight more, even though they're maybe in a majority right now. But Norbert, let me ask you about this super interesting approach of the Brazilian government, tax the rich, we need more finance, maybe also tax the agribusiness. Obviously, we are heading to re-elections in Germany, so maybe you can speak as a private person, as Norbert, the person, not representative of the government. What do you think about the whole tax the rich idea, and how could we get closer to a result within the next year?
What I personally would say, it's something which really needs to be seriously considered. So that's very obvious. But let me also jump back from my personal opinion and look a little bit at the realities. And the realities is that such a thing needs a long, daunting work from many people. So I think we should not betray ourselves by. There is some signals coming out of the G20 presidency from Brazil. That's true. But there's also some clear rejections which had been made in many of the meetings. So I would say, interestingly, some years ago, it was possible to introduce a minimum tax for enterprises, for corporates. That also took years to come there. In the end, it was done through the OECD. And I think something like the tax for the individuals with high incomes, that's how it is called officially, is something which also perhaps needs, as we say, einen langen Atem. I'm not sure whether that's in English long breath or what, something like that. Yeah, you need to, yeah. And if there is really the political will, then I think one can continue to work on that and find a way. But we should not expect that this could be happening at a COP, because the COP is not the right place to decide about that. That needs to be done by finance ministers. Possibly an institution like the OECD could be useful for that, or another international organization. I'm not an expert on the details of that, but the political will is I think the core for getting there. And looking at the international political situation, I'm not that sure that this is something which is easy to put through within the next 4 years. I said with determination 4 years.
Okay, thank you. It's a bit depressing, but I mean, yeah, your opinion. And I just want to, before we open for your questions, so you can think about it now, what you would like to ask. I wanted to ask Madeleine, is there any country you see as a pioneer for tax in a fair way? Is there any country you see as a social justice pioneer at the moment, apart from Brazil and Germany, of course, but anybody who could be the front runner for more public money, public financing?
That's not such an easy question, because all the different countries, they have advantages and disadvantages. We know that, for example, Kenya is pushing very hard on taxes, but then we also know that just this summer there was a huge demonstration going on in Kenya when it was about their own taxes. So I think it also it always has two different perspectives. And I would like to see Germany and Europe being a front runner in this battle and this case, because we, I'm also German, so I say we, as Global North, we should be a front runner. We should lead by example. And I think we have many big corporations, and many of these agro-businesses actually are not placed in Brazil. They have their headquarters in Europe or in the US. So I think we should move forward and bring up proposals here so that we can lead by example and then have others move afterwards.
Okay, it's working. Norbert has one comment, one remark.
Just want to complement one point, which I think is important. Two things. First, I think something like that needs to be done on an international basis. You cannot do that as a single country. That would lead very quickly to the individuals just leave the country, and then nothing is won. But secondly, I think there is another initiative which I would like to mention, and Kenya is behind that. there is a task force called Task Force on International Solidarity Levies, which had been emerging from the People's Pact for Planet, for the Paris Pact for the People and the Planet, something like that. It's a French initiative, was convened last year, and a number of initiatives were coming out of that. And one was such a task force which would look at various potential international levies. And that is now led by the European Climate Foundation. They do the work, funded by some philanthropic foundations. A number of countries are behind that. Germany is at least observing that work. And the work just started, and they are aimed to come out with a report with recommendations next year, with concrete proposals. And they look at levies for international maritime, international aviation, financial transaction tax. They also look at the fossil fuel, international fossil fuel tax, and they have to look at the impacts, the feasibility, etc. So we will see what comes out of it. A number of experts will be behind that, supporting that work, and I think that's an interesting space to observe in this context.
Okay, thank you so much for this information. Are there any questions from you who would like to pose now? Jimmy is coming to your place.
Yeah. Hi. I'm Ana, climate reporter from Brazil. I'd like to know from both Brazilian and European side, how do you see the possibility of mechanisms like carbon tax and the attempt you had in EU and that Danish Parliament just approved yesterday that's stopping imports linked to deforestation, especially imports linked to agribusiness. How is it the perspective of those solutions coming in the place of the traditional climate finance we see here that's not really advancing much? So,
okay. So if I got the question right, it was about how Europe could contribute to non-deforestational
also
imports,
tax.
products.
Yeah.
And the carbon tax, what was? Yeah. Can you repeat it?
I mean, I understand that there are commercial barriers that can get in the way as climate finance is not advancing here in the traditional way of providing finance for climate activities, but you also have like a broader way to do that.
Yeah.
When you have law like the European law that's stop imports linked to deforestation, the law that the Danish Parliament just approved yesterday in the same direction. So I'd like to understand how you see the perspective for this going forward, both in the European side and also in the Brazilian government.
Okay, thank you, Raoni. Also, you took the microphone, so you'd like to start?
Well, I think, first of all, it's important to highlight that we need partners if we are to reduce, especially illegal deforestation. There is a study from our National Institute for Space Research, which finds that 87% of the areas embargoed by our forest rangers are still under agricultural production, which means someone is buying that. Some of that might even export that. So we need to make sure that buyers also check if Brazilian legislation is followed through. In addition to that, we have the plan, we have the objective to reach zero deforestation in 2030, and of course this also means finding solutions for the legal deforestation, not only the illegal deforestation. But for that to happen, we need also to find mechanisms. We need to work together, and we think especially financial mechanism is the way forward. So in that sense, I think there are indeed different ways in which trade could be a possible motivation, could be a possible way to accelerate that process, but we need to build bridges for where we have to get, rather than building barriers that might actually generate effects which go in the opposite direction.
So what does it mean concretely for Europe and for our regulations, for example? To not build barriers, but to help to support the protection of the forest. How should European regulation be adapted in your opinion?
Well, there are already elements in the legislation. I think it's a matter of making them work in a proper way. So, for instance, the part of the UDR that deals with asking countries to make sure and to prove that that product is following the national legislation is something which we're completely supportive of, because we need also buyers to be asking for that kind of information and to require that kind of information. But as it comes to no deforestation after 2020, even that authorized, we need to find ways to make that a political, an economic option on the part of farmers. And indeed, in the UDR, there is already the possibility of not only technological but financial cooperation. I think there is some room there to further develop this idea.
Okay, thank you so much. Maybe you can, in the final order, do you have remarks for the German government?
Yeah, I recognize that the introduction of the UDR was, I would say, not well enough communicated and consulted with a number of impacted countries, including Brazil, which I think is, which is not good. Now it was decided to postpone the implementation or the setting into force for 1 year. And I hope very much that this year would be used, this additional year would be used really to come over these differences between forest countries and the European Union. And I really, what you just said, so that you very much would like to have an incentive, even if it's an external incentive, to promote and prioritize products which comply with Brazilian legislation, is, I think, already the right direction. I also recognize, I'm not in the details of this EUDR, but I also heard a lot about administrative burdens in the implementation. I'm sure one can use the year to improve that. So, therefore, the intention of the EUDR was really to support preventing additional deforestation. It was not to create barriers against products from forest countries. It was just to promote the right kind of products which are less deforestation. So I very much hope that with the additional time we've found now, that's in the hand of the European Union, and of course our Ministry of Agriculture for sure will be involved to find a solution now to make that becoming a success story rather than what it was at the moment.
Okay, thank you so much. So till COP30, it's good to find a way for regulation which fits all the goals together. So we have another question from the audience.
Thank you very much. I'm Dunja Krause. I work for the UN.
Could you speak up, please?
Sorry. Hi. Yes, thank you very much. I'm Dunja Krause. I work for the UN Research Institute for Social Development. I appreciate your comments on the importance of taxation for socially just solutions, and was wondering if you could comment on the potential of the ongoing process for a UN tax convention in changing some of the rules that are currently maybe hindering more like fairer solutions.
Okay, which rules do you mean exactly? Maybe can you?
Sorry, no, because there's currently the process is ongoing to create a UN tax convention, right? To challenge some of the ways that taxation is being handled, and also to avoid tax evasion, etc. And I'm wondering if you see potential in cooperating between this convention and the climate convention, obviously, to change some of the rules that are currently hindering more fair climate solutions as well.
Okay, thank you so much. I think this is a question for the representatives of the governments. Who'd like to answer first?
A quick word on it. I'm not a competent person really to talk about that. The only thing I would say is a UN convention to negotiate and come to a consensus conclusion also takes a lot of time. And I already said, agreeing something among a group of like-minded countries in this regard will take a lot of time. I'm quite sure that such a convention would even take longer. I'm not sure whether this is the quickest way to come to a solution. So I'm skeptical, let me say like that, but I'm not in the details, so we should better talk to our colleagues from the finance ministry who are dealing with that.
Okay, so it's more of a marathon at the moment, but it's good to have the processes interlinked, and that you mentioned this already to us. We have another question.
Hi. I heard you talking about the German government's contribution to the Amazon Fund, and it turns out that the financing model favors large projects and excludes organizations on the front line of the environmental preservation. Current enforcement and accountability process are excessively complex for small entities, which often do not have the administrative infrastructure necessary to handle these requirements. So do you think it will be possible for the Brazilian government to invest in creating specific financing lines for small entities? Because we believe in simplifying this process as essential to democratize access to Amazon Fund resources.
So how can the small entities, communities can profit from the Amazon Fund? Raoni, it's again a question for you. You'll love to hear your opinion.
Well, we indeed have a challenge here, and I totally understand the situation of smaller organizations. I've been on that side, of writing projects, having to deal with accounting and basically prestação de contas, basically showing up the accounts and to extend it works. And as it comes to the Amazon Fund specifically, we have two very high requirements and demands. One is the demand from donors that want to make sure that taxpayer money from Germany, from Norway, etc., is well spent, and it's possible to actually track every cent that's spent within the fund, and also from Brazilian society. The Amazon Fund has actually been the focus of parliamentary inquiries, trying to basically prove somehow that it basically, has problems, it diverges money, whatever. So there has been so much pressure from those sectors that do not want the environmental agenda, the social agenda to advance. And thanks to that very strong governance within the fund, we have been resilient and basically showed over and over again that the fund is well run. But the problem still exists, right? It is a high requirement to go into the fund. And so there has been two main strategies already implemented in the current government to tackle that. The first is to create a new type of project, which is the aggregator project. So now, if you can actually have a larger organization to propose a project of projects. So you are a bigger organization with the capacity to actually distribute money to make sure that all the cents are well accounted for, and that can actually then help and transfer the money to smaller organizations. So that's a model that has been now a part of the Amazon Fund. And secondly, we have been working very seriously on how to support and basically to do capacity building with local organizations. Right now, for instance, one of the largest indigenous projects ever was approved now in this administration just recently. And also we have a new project, also with the support of Germany, the Forest for Action, Action for Forest, sorry. And one of the main components of that project is still being developed is actually to have resources to go there and look at local communities and local institutions, local associations, and teach them how can they actually raise the bar and build capacity. Because in the end of the day, having stronger capacity, a well-organized ledger, and being able to is actually something that will enable them to get resources, not only from the Amazon Fund, but also from other sources. So at the end of the day, everybody wins.
So you acknowledge that there has been a problem with the access, but the solution is that more small communities or entities will be interlinked together to send their application in together somehow, like this. Understood right? Or
no? So it's two things.
Yeah.
It's one. You can have a larger organization which actually applies, but not to use the money itself. Okay. But then it applies and get resources, and then it becomes a network of organizations, right?
So like Climate Action Network. This kind of network.
Indeed, and in the second side is actually to have resources for capacity building. So experts, consultants that will go to the smaller institutions and teach them how to improve and actually how to raise the bar and become able to access more resources.
Okay, so Pollyana and Madeleine, quick comment from you. Are you satisfied with the answer? Is this good solution, or anything else you would like to add?
I just wanted to add, since we talk about finance here, the Amazon Fund is something that we are in discussion, because I think that many banks from the Amazon and outside, from Brazil itself, also have a lot of implementation going to enterprises and enterprises that are in the Amazon, but not really from the Amazon region. So, international enterprises and companies that are not exactly from the Amazon region, that are established in the Amazon region, get the money so they could, work and go towards this development they think they're doing. So I think that the government also should have more pressure to, give this financial aid to more communities instead of these companies that are not exactly helping them. So it's not a mean, to use this fund for it. And it has this meaning that it's helping the civility that is there in the Amazon and where the company is based, but not really, the company is not really doing it well for the people who are based in the Amazon. So, yeah.
Okay, so it should not be a company-based approach. Madeleine, quick comment from you.
Can I just give the word back to Bruna, because it was her question, and I think she can comment the best. And yeah.
Okay, thank you. No,
Good
I
idea.
think it should be like a process. Like, I understand it that we need to, now large organizations should do this applies by the smaller ones, but in the future with these capacitations and everything, I think the ideal model should be like the small organizations should receive for their own, because it gives more autonomy, it gives more powerful to the people.
So we have not quite reached consensus yet. So still, you agree, okay? But somehow those small entities have to be linked to the networks, to the capacity building. But I think this is also something which will be discussed at COP30 and throughout the next year. So we hope to catch up on that topic next year. Thank you so much for that. So we just have 5 minutes left. So is anybody here with a very urgent question you would like to be answered? Ah, yes. And can you introduce yourself shortly? Thank you.
Thank you. Martin Zimmer, I'm a mangrove ecologist from the Leibniz Center for Tropical Marine Research in Bremen, Germany. I would like to come back to your opening statement, Raoul, when you reminded us how important greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuels are. Now, this year, the hosting countries of COP make their income from fossil fuels, and Brazil also has quite some business in oil extraction and export. So I would like to ask the two Brazilian panelists about their perspective, how we can fill this tension field between the aim of the next COP and the financial interests of your country.
Who wants to start? Raoni, please.
Well, luckily I'm director for deforestation control policies. And so that question would have to be referred to the other colleagues in government. Of course, there is a public debate, and of course there is a technical analysis being done of the requirements and also the planning of the country in the long term of the plan of the country. I believe we have provided a very strong NDC. 0.85 in 2035 is going to be indeed a challenge, a big challenge for all of us, and that will actually make Brazilian society face some hard questions. That either you make you make the belt shorter on the industry and emissions for fossil fuel, or you even reduce further deforestation and increase large-scale restoration. So that's the kind of healthy debate we need within the country, and that's what our NDC is already prompting. So I believe only time will tell specifically what's going to be the final trajectory, but it's definitely a very narrow path in which we have to make hard choices, and that's the way forward for all countries when it comes to decarbonization.
So the decisions are not yet taken. Pollyana, what's your short comment on this?
Well, I just wanted to add that Brazil is still a great emission country. for itself. And it's a huge challenge for the country, and I agree that the NDC is still a good one. But as a society, I also believe that we could be, better at this point. So I think that it's a huge challenge for a country that has been, developing into this section that is basically on fossil fuels and deforestation and agribusiness. But I think we are moving towards, something kind of a better development than that. And I think that the whole point of the NDC is still a good point, but as a society part and a part of the Amazon region also, I do believe that we should, implement even better, and we could do better anyways. So.
Okay, so tough discussion still waiting us. Mitigation is also, of course, super important. This would be enough for another panel for another 2 hours, but unfortunately, we reached the end of the discussion, and I would love to hear from the whole round. One final remark, one sentence. What will you personally contribute to a successful COP30? Madeleine.
Yes, so I am speaking now for MISEREOR, right? And MISEREOR is contributing a platform for partners that they can engage, that they can rise, that they can revive their capacities and build these strong bonds. And I think as civil society, we are all looking for these spaces where we can protest, where we can speak out what our opinion is. And I think this is what we want to contribute to, so that it is a lively, a colorful, but still an important political space where we can make ambitious decisions so that this planet can stay alive.
Okay.
Well, actually, from the youth, from the Amazon, we actually have some projects that are based on, having more society into the whole negotiation agendas and how they can, do more pressure. So the result is actually coming in this COP. So we have a few projects that is called Yellow Zone, for instance, who is from this organization in Brazil of youth from the Amazon. And it's more of like a zone where the youth would be, exactly as you said, have more discussions and have more, space to do it without, excluding them.
So we will bring the youth to the COP?
Yes.
Okay. Norbert, what will be your contribution?
I hope that the European Union, and Germany is part of that, will be able to present right in time for COP30 a very ambitious and good NDC. We're still working on it. It's not completely clear where we end, but that is really what I think we have to deliver.
That sounds great. Raoni, you already have so many projects you told us about, but what's the most important thing you will work on till COP30?
I think we need to keep delivering on deforestation reduction. I think first, we have to keep doing our homework. I think that's how we can be a climate leader in the process. And in this way, step up, move forward with the rules, especially of Article 5, just transition, and step up on climate finance.
Okay, thank you so much. We're looking forward to the next COP. I also hope that this COP will end with a good result. I want to thank the Brazilian Green Party and the youth movement for facilitating also this event, for your help in organizing everything. And thanks to the audience for being here. Let's keep in touch and let's work for a successful COP30 in Belém. Hope to see you all there and wish you a great evening.
Welcome to the German Climate Pavilion at COP29 in Baku. Germany. Climate solutions, fast and fair.